I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com, and this is a video on Kindle publishing for marketing tips for authors. So I've just published my thriller novel Pentecost on the Kindle, and I have a few tips for you so that you can learn from some of these lessons. I'm also an avid Kindle reader. I've had my Kindle for over a year now and I just love it. I probably read 90% of books on the Kindle, so when I'm talking about this, it's kind of from an author and also a reader perspective. Now, first up, it's very easy to publish your ebook at dtp.amazon.com, but what is slightly more difficult is making sure your book is in the right format in the first place so that it's easy to read on the Kindle. Now, Pentecost is my fourth self-published book or indie published book, and this time I decided to use a professional, and that's my first tip for you. It only costs, not very much money anymore to get someone to format your book for you and save yourself a lot of frustration and a lot of pain. Now, and also to have a more professional product. So that would be my first tip. Really look at getting a professional to format your book for you into the Kindle format, especially if you have tables or images or anything that you want to embed. But even a plain text book looks better when a professional formats it. You can also get them to do an EPUB at the same time, so you can get it onto the iPad and other places. When you actually get into the DTP screen, the desktop publishing screen for the Kindle, you realise that you have to choose specific categories to put your book under. Now, this is really worth thinking about because categories are used for when people search for books and also for your rankings, so you want to make sure you're in the right place with your categories. So for example, under fiction there is a Christian category, which is then subdivided into things like romance. Then there's also a romance category on the same level as Christian, and under romance might be historical, for example, historical romance. Now, if you have a romance that might be considered Christian, where do you put it? Now, you can actually do more than one category, but you can't go on forever. So you need to choose a few specific categories that your book's going to fit into, and that will really help people to find it when they search. Tip number 3 is making sure your book cover image is optimized for the thumbnail size of the Kindle. Now, I'm a massive, Kindle reader, as I said, and what I do every month is I go and browse things that have been released in the last 30 days, and I scroll down the pages on Amazon.com, and I pretty much look for books where the cover or the title catches my eye within the categories that I read, which are like thrillers and mysteries and that type of thing. So I go through and then I click on things that I might like, and I download a sample. Now, pretty much whether or not I click is dependent on the book cover and the title. So those are still important in the days of ebooks. It's not on the shelf, but it's on the virtual shelf. So that would be my next tip, is make sure your cover is thumbnail size. You also need to remember that with the Kindle, people use sampling, and for example, it might be 5–10% of your book that's available for a download of a sample, which is free, and that's what Kindle readers like myself like to do. Now, I might have 30 odd samples on my Kindle at any one time, and then I pop in and read some of the sample and decide whether I want to buy it. So it's critical that your sample hooks people in the first few pages, certainly the first couple of chapters. So you almost have to make sure your book is slanted, so up front is brilliant. Now, that is supposedly true of all books, but you just can't afford to wait 20 pages before your book gets going. You have to grab people as soon as they look at your sample. So that would be my next tip. And finally, once your book is actually available on the Kindle, you might want to think about targeted advertising. Now, much of marketing is free, and much of the tips on this blog and my blog are about free ways to market, so blogging, social networking, that type of thing. But you can also use targeted advertising for the Kindle, which can be very effective. So take a look at Kindle Nation, for example. Now, you have to book that way in advance of your launch because they're so booked up, but that goes out to people who love reading Kindle books. So that's a really good promotion to do. You can also think about Facebook advertising to targeted markets for people who like the Kindle. You can actually do that on Facebook, really targeted advertising. So that might be a way forward as well. Certainly, if you have even a small budget, you can do things like this that will improve your chance of getting up the Kindle charts and getting some good sales, and we know that's what we all want. So those are some of my tips for publishing on the Kindle. A big thank you to Tony from Marketing Tips for Authors, and I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com.